Thanks everyone for joining me here today to talk about Ariana Resources. Ariana Resources is focused on gold exploration, development and production in Turkey. We've been operating in Turkey for 13 years now, starting off in 2004 with a grassroots exploration portfolio. We've taken that portfolio all the way through to production, which we commenced in March of last year. We've currently got two full commercial quarters of production behind us. And I'll go through some of the numbers on those operations in due course. But I'd also like to draw your attention to a major exploration find that we've made in northeastern Turkey, which contains 1 million ounces in JORC resources. That first slide there just shows some of the outline numbers from our joint venture production in western Turkey and the track record that we've established in the country over that 13-year time frame. As you can see, cash costs are industry leading. So just a further summary slide there of our current position, the growth potential that we've demonstrated at our main production asset in western Turkey, with a plan to take our current production from 20,000 ounces of gold all the way through to 50,000 ounces per annum of production, all housed within that joint venture. We've also, separate to that, undertaken a number of investments in the strategic and technology metals space, primarily through our subsidiary in Australia, and we've added 3.2 million Australian dollars to the balance sheet through those investments in recent times. We've got no debt at the group level. We do have debt at the joint venture company level, which I'll come on to later, but we've got cash and liquid investments totaling about $1 million. This slide just summarizes the investment case for the company, comparing ourselves to some of our peer group on the AIM market. Now, some of these companies, I'm sure you know, there are some that are in our market cap range, and their sentiment, interestingly, tracking, or we tracking sentiment, broadly speaking, for whatever reason, over that period of time. This slide summarizes our current shareholder base, as well as some key data on the company. The board of directors shown there. I'm joined here at 1-to-1 by Michael de Villiers, our chairman, so you can come to see us at our booth E3 if you want to have a more detailed chat at any stage. But this is really what I want to focus on for the purposes of this presentation. The presentation does go on to provide further detail about our producing asset in western Turkey, but I'd like to really focus my time on this because this is the game-changing story for the company. Sullenbash is located in northeastern Turkey, not far from the Georgian border, and the discovery that we made a few years ago, while it was in joint venture with Eldorado Gold, ultimately defined a 1 million ounce resource. But as I'll demonstrate, there's quite clearly scope to grow this resource quite substantially. These licenses are the ones we hold now outright after we purchased the 51% stake that Eldorado had in this project. We completed that transaction in late 2016, and we've been undertaking further exploration work on this project over the course of the last year. But most importantly, perhaps for the interest in this region, is the Hot Maden discovery, which was made a few years ago by the Lydia-Mariana joint venture. And of course, the rest is history. That was a $175 million transaction that was undertaken by Sandstorm Gold to take 30% of that asset. So we've got all the ground to the north of the Hot Maden discovery in what we refer to as the Hot Gold Corridor. Some detail there on the resource, both at Sullenbash, but as well as at Ardala, which is the copper gold moly porphyry that ultimately drove this system. And it's ultimately around that porphyry that we see the opportunity for further resource growth, and quite substantial growth too by the looks of it. We completed a scoping study on the core of the Sullenbash deposit, demonstrating that the project has robust economic fundamentals, certainly at the scoping stage. The exploration that we've undertaken during the course of this year has demonstrated further potential for discoveries to be made right through that hot gold corridor, but particularly in the Ardala and surrounding areas. We've actually made a discovery of what looks to be another Sullenbash type system to the north here, as well as that ultimately merging with the Ardler porphyry. So it's a large gold, silver, but also base metal dominant system, copper, lead, zinc, and molybdenum. Now, in terms of where we take this project going forward, we're looking at a number of options. None of these have been either ruled in or out at this stage, but we're developing strands to the strategy in this regard. We're looking at potential outright project sale or joint venture. We believe there's a lot of value that could be added through targeted future exploration, and as well as continuing the exploration in our own right to drive that value further before we complete any transaction. And before I finish, I'll just quickly run through the next few slides which relate to our producing asset in Western Turkey. So this is a joint venture that we hold with Prosir Construction. Prosir Construction are a Turkish entity, privately held, that specializes in gold, silver processing plant, EPCM. They contributed $8 million of development capital to take us through the feasibility, EIA, and into construction. But in addition to that, we had a $33 million capital loan through a Turkish bank, Türkiye Finans, which we're currently paying off. Separate to that, there's a working capital facility as well that we can draw on. The feasibility numbers are shown there, but perhaps most importantly, I'll just quickly, go back to that slide. Up here, we've got a summary of our production stats over this very first year of production. So we poured our first doré in March of last year and entered commercial production in July. So we've had 2 full quarters of commercial production now. And as you can see, we've got very enviable cash costs there. So it's a very profitable operation. This is what the site looks like. It's a fairly conventional primary, secondary crusher, ball mill into a CIL plant. We've also got a CIC facility, which is not currently active. We'll be activating that later as mining progresses. At the moment, we're mining this main pit at Arzu South, but we're also in the process of permitting some other pits on these hills over here. And we're aiming to bring them into production towards the end of this year and in latter years. So our joint venture currently employs 175 staff on site. We've got strong community and local support, both at that local level but at government level as well in Turkey, the project having received strategic investment status a couple of years ago. And I'm very pleased to say that we've very much got the state-of-the-art processing facility and indeed the most advanced tailings dam that's been permitted in Turkey to date. This summarizes current resource potential. The vein system shown in yellow here, the blue pits showing the feasibility pits that we're currently working to, the red pits shown there containing the Whittle optimized resource based on the latest resource estimate. But there's plenty of scope to add to the resources along strike of existing veins, but also other veins that we haven't yet drill tested. So I think we're comfortably going to keep this operation going for the designed 8 years, but indeed taking that to 10 years plus eventually. The next site that we want to develop within the joint venture is Tavşan, which is located 72 kilometers to the northeast of Kızıltepe. We're envisaging this as a semi-standalone, semi-autonomous heap leach that's developed in parallel with Kızıltepe. The scoping study has been completed on that, again with very attractive project economics, as you can see there, the MPVs, IRRs and paybacks. That summarizes the geology very briefly now. It's a flat, gently dipping sheet of gold mineralization essentially at the top of a hill. So from a strip ratio point of view, it's next to nothing. The pits are only going to be about 10, maximum 20 meters deep. As I said, heap leach, we've undertaken the column leach test work. It leaches very well indeed. So we can see that over the course of the next couple of years, adding another 30,000 ounces per annum production to the company. I'll skip that to the last slide just to wrap up. Revenue within the joint venture company is trending above $5 million a quarter. In fact, the last quarter was over $6 million. So a very profitable operation indeed. We've done very well through some strategic investments that we've undertaken in metals other than gold outside of Turkey. But what we're most excited by currently is our Sullenbosch project, the million-ounce discovery that we made there, and growing that, ultimately because we believe that there's strong potential for a multi-million-ounce system in that location. We've got a cracking team on site that we've developed over the course of 13 years, headed up by a very strong board and management team in the country, as well as an excellent joint venture team on site in Western Turkey. Thank you very much for your time.